What's up, man? This is a preemptive apology before I get into this album. My sound is totally messed up. I actually did this Yellow video a couple of hours ago, and then I realized when I was done that my mic clipped off right in the middle of me talking. So I don't know. I'm doing the best I can here. It doesn't beep or anything at me when it goes dead, so the mic just goes dead, and I've got no idea that it's dead. So yeah, I'm doing the best I can here. You might see me check my mic every once in a while. Make sure it's on. Because, yeah, it's a crapshoot. My sound is fucked up. I apologize. I'm going to try to bang out a few more videos here, too, in the next couple days because I'm not making videos. It's supposed to be 100 plus degrees in the early part of the next week, and I'm not going to want to be sitting in a hot room with fans going when it's 100 plus degrees. You can understand that. Cool thing about YouTube is I can make videos and schedule them to come out later, and that's what I'm going to be doing here. Without further ado, I'm going to be talking about this. Yello. Yes, Yello. Pocket Universe. This is one of my favorite groups, and I have really been looking forward to talking about this group. I think they are a vastly underrated and misunderstood band, group, duo, whatever you want to call them. Yello. And if you think you know Yello without hearing all of their albums, you don't know Yello. If you think you've heard all you need to hear, you've heard Oh Yeah, or you've watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and you think, yeah, that's what Yello sounds like. No, you have not heard Yello. Do not unfairly judge this group. That is a bad mistake because these guys are one of the greats. Definitely one of the best electronic groups of all time, but also just one of the best groups. They have had a long, rich history. They've been around for over 40 years. And this might surprise some of you, but these guys are still around. They're well into their 60s. And in fact, I think Dieter Meier is in his 70s. Boris Blank is a little younger than that, but he might be 70 as well. These guys have been around for a long time. And they're still around and they're still crushing it. Their last record was really good. It's called Point, and it was awesome. Boris Blank, the man who produces the music here and produces everything and mixes everything, he's a genius. He is an absolute sound sculptor when it comes to being a musician and a producer and a visionary artist. The things he has done with this band Yello have been groundbreaking, and I think these guys are vastly underrated, and I want to try to dispel the idea that they only had a couple of good songs back in the 80s because no, you might have only thought they put out albums in the 80s and then died off, but no, they've been around. They're still here, man. Their first records came out in the very early 80s and they're still around. Over 40 years of Yellow. Boris Blank and Dieter Meier. Dieter Meier is the singer. Boris Blank is the sound sculptor. I call him sound sculptor because that's what he is. Arguably more than anybody else, he just takes sounds and he puts them here and here and here and here and here. He always has the rhythms, he always has the drum patterns and the melodies and the bridges and the harmonies, but then he takes these sounds and does these incredibly innovative things with them. Just absolutely ahead of his time artist. He still is. And if you've never heard this, Pocket Universe, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. You need to hear this album. Most people who know of Yellow, they know their 80s stuff. They know 1 Second, they know Flag. Those were the those were the albums that were associated with movies. These guys get used a lot in movies and commercials. In fact, I was just watching when I was watching the baseball game the other night, there's a new Volkswagen commercial. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a new Volkswagen commercial with a dog in the back in the back seat and you hear this voice go one more time. That's Yellow. Tiger Dust. One of their best songs, in my opinion. It's on an album called The Eye. It came after this. Have any of you seen this Volkswagen commercial? They're still yanking out the Yello tunes, man. They've been all over commercials and movies their whole lives. You've heard a lot of these tracks, probably not on here, but I just mean Yello tracks. You've heard a lot of them probably, and you don't even know it. Their tracks are very filmic. They're very cinematic. They're very dramatic. They're very funny, but they're always extremely well produced and well delivered. And Boris Blank is the music guy. He comes up with the musical ideas chiefly, and Dieter Meier is the vocalist and lyricist. It is an incredible duo. Nobody on the earth has ever sounded like this, and that's why I love these guys. Pocket Universe is my favorite Yello album. I love all Yello albums. I've never heard a bad Yello album in my life. If I had to rank them, I'd probably put Pocket Universe at number one, Zebra number two, and probably You Gotta Say Yes to Another Excess as number three. Excess is an album that dates back to the 80s. That's one of their earlier albums. I still love it. I think that's, if we're talking about the decade of the 80s where these guys existed, I would say that's their best. But this came out in 1997, and this is their best record for me, in my opinion. I love this record. This is a school in electronic music production. If you want to understand how to produce electronic music in a big, dramatic, incredible way, you will listen to this. Boris Blank puts on a clinic with this album. To this day, it's some of the most innovative production work I've ever heard when it comes to electronic music. The stuff he does, the ideas he conjures, the techniques he employs is insane. I'm going to link a couple of the songs here in the video title. Please scroll down and check my links. I'm going to put a couple of the best songs, I think, on this album, and especially songs that exhibit his incredible production style. He's an amazing producer and remixer and mixer and masterer and all that shit. Boris Blank, one of the great electronic music producers in history. I don't think that's an overstatement. And this is an incredibly overlooked album, man, I think. Pocket Universe. There's not a bad song on here. They're all great. Every damn one of them. Only two singles came from this. I'll talk about them. I have them sitting right here next to me. On Track and To the Sea. Any song on here could have been a single, I think. In fact, my favorite song on here is right here, Resistor. Man, talk about a clinic. I'm going to be linking to that song. I hope you guys check it out. Even if this type of music isn't necessarily your thing, if you have an appreciation for music production, I think you should check this album out. There's a lot to learn here. Boris Blank's from another planet when it comes to music production. He always was. This was his first highly technical album, I think. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. All Yello albums are highly technical, but this is when he really started getting into the digital age. And this was the album that Yello really changed their sound. Hang on a sec. Let me do a mic check. Hey, okay. All right. This is where they started taking off in a different direction, I think, musically and production wise. Yello, they were Yello. Those of you who have heard these guys in the 80s, they definitely had a distinctive sound, and it didn't really change too much throughout the years in the 80s. That whole decade, it was like each Yello album had a very similar theme to it musically. They had a sound. And that 80s sound still is completely unique and original, I think. But in the early 90s, they put out an album called Baby, and that came out in 1991. And I think the world had caught up to these guys in terms of electronic music production. They were no longer ahead of the pack, really. They always were, and then in the 90s, yeah, it was such a wild frontier of awesome music then. Technology was getting more affordable, more people had their hands on the technology. Things really evolved quickly. And when Baby came out, that's probably my least favorite Yellow album out of all of their albums. And I think it's because it sounded dated the day it came out in 1991. It just Yellow sounded like a band that was done. And I remember being concerned at the time. I was like, yeah, this album isn't great. This is the first Yellow album so far after a decade where I felt like their music wasn't hitting all the right notes. But then in 1994, they released Zebra, and you could hear them shifting. They were catching up with the times. They were hanging on to those old things from the 80s that they had. Zebra's kind of a nice combination of that, though. It's old and the embracing of the new. That's why I love Zebra right behind this one. It was their Zebra in a lot of ways was their the first album where they fully embraced techno. This was all techno. Like this was the beginning of the new phase of Yellow. Boris Blank threw aside what they had done before, and he embraced the future on this one, and he crushed it. Beautiful album. I remember after Zebra, I definitely thought, where do these guys go now? Unless they go full on technology, I'm not quite sure what they do from here on out. And he did. Boris Blank was like, okay, this is what I have to do now to be relevant. Okay, then. That's what I'm going to do. And he did. What a great album. Seriously, guys, check this out if you've never heard it. You guys who like electronic music and maybe you're judging Yellow from Oh Yeah and all that shit from the 80s, I kind of understand that, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't listened to this. This is a great album, man. Some of the best production I've ever heard. Really inspired shit. Solar Driftwood. That's an intro, kind of a goofy intro with Dieter Meier talking about basically world peace and bringing the world together and what the universe is like and how he sees the universe. But it's Dieter Meier. I mean, you gotta love the guy's voice. It's arguably the greatest voice of all time and the most distinctive. When you hear Dieter's voice right away, you're like, oh yeah, here we go. Dieter's in the house. Celsius. I'll link to that too. That's a great song in their canon. Fantastic shit. More could have been a single. On Track was a single. Monolith could have been a single. To the Sea was a single. My favorite song on this album is right here, Resistor. I'll link you to that. Man, what a song. Jesus. And try to listen to it loudly if you can. If you've got nice headphones, put them on, cancel the noise, and crank it up. And if you've got a nice stereo in your car, do the same damn thing. Put Resistor in there and crank the volume. Yes, Resistor is a brilliant song. It's such a great song to nerd out to. If you understand anything about electronic music production and you're listening to Resistor, you're just like, damn, yes, Boris Blank putting on a fucking clinic. Brilliant album. My favorite Yellow amongst all sorts of brilliant Yellow albums. You can't count them. I don't think they've ever put out a bad album. Like I said, Baby is my least favorite. It's still got some great moments on it. Jungle Bill was on there, and Andy Weatherall remixed that. There were some good singles on there, but Baby was their weakest album. But they bounced back a few years later here. Check this out if you've never done that. Let's look at this packaging, shall we? Got a nice little gatefold going on here. Nice stuff. And this is the recent reissue. I'm going to do a mic check. All good. All systems go there. This is a reissue from a couple years ago. I do have the original press of this. It looks almost exactly the same. It does have different font, I noticed. When I saw this, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Slightly different font, but I think the pressing itself is really excellent. In fact, I listened to them back to back, I didn't hear much difference at all, if any. So you're not missing out on much if you don't get that original press. This reissue, and they reissued all their recent stuff. When I say recent, they reissued all their albums back to Baby. I think everything from Flag before that had already been reissued a number of years ago. Then a few years ago, they reissued everything from Baby up. And they're nice. Very nice reissues. This is part of what I love about Yello, too. Their sense of humor, their aura, their personalities. If you see their videos, you know what I mean. They're very funny. Deep senses of humor with these guys. They don't take themselves seriously, but they take the music seriously. I love it when bands are like that. And their photos are always kind of goofy and playful. I love the way they come across. One of the many things to love about these guys. Labels, side B. By the way, these guys are Swiss. I assume people know that they're from Switzerland. If you don't know that, and I can't imagine you wouldn't, these guys are from Switzerland. Let me show you record 2. This is a double record. A good hour's worth of music on this sucker. Here's the second disc. More photos. I'm not going to show the labels. They look exactly the same as the other one. Just different tracks, of course. Really great stuff, guys. And the pressing's nice here. You don't get any ugly perforations on the side. Sound quality on the records is nice. Yeah. And all the reissues are really nice. I would highly recommend them all. I have them all and highly recommended. Here was the lead-off single for the album. This is To the Sea. This is the one with the Ian Pooley mixes. This got a couple of different releases with different remixes. Ian Pooley is on this one. He's a house and techno guy. These mixes are pretty good. I prefer the mixes on this other 12-inch I'm about to show. The song itself is fantastic. I think the best mix of this song happens to be the Steve Bissett remix, which is on here. It is called the Northern Mix. This is an Italian 12-inch. I don't remember where I got this, to be honest. This is an Italian pressing, but this has the Northern Mix on here. And this is the version that you see in the video, which is, in my opinion, the best mix. The album mix is good too, but Bissett does his own remix here, and I think they were so impressed with it, they used it for their video version. And I'll link you to that version. I think it's the best one. There's probably 8 or 9 remixes of this. Italian. Like me. Then I'm going to show this is like a UK promo, but I wanted to show this quickly. I feel like you guys enjoy seeing shit like this, so I'm going to show this. This is the press release I got for To the Sea. Mercury. I used to be on the Mercury mailing list. On May 12th, 1997, Yello released To the Sea, a deliciously ethereal and wonderfully poppy transatlantic crossing from Switzerland's most colorful export, which also features the diaphanous yet deadly vocals of Stina Nordenstam. Each mix on the, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they talk about the formatting. A press release. Things you don't normally see. I like to show those on this channel because, I don't know, I don't think people see this very often, right? How often do you? I always tried to keep my press releases and all that stuff together. I just think it makes it more interesting, you know. This is on track. I don't know. It just dawned on me. I don't know how I'm going to comfortably show this on this screen because this is a big, wide release, and I'll show you what I mean by that. It is not just a gatefold. When you open it up, it is a quad fold, right? Quad fold. Yes. I don't know that. Yeah, you know what? I don't know that I can even. I was going to stand up and show this, but I don't know that that would work either. Yeah, this isn't going to work. It folds out 4 times. There are 3 records stuffed in here. Let me see. Can you get a gist there? There's 2 of the records. There's another record in here in this black part in the back. There's another record stuffed in here. But there are 3 records on yellow wax. You can see the yellowness. And you see those little flaps? You pull those flaps, like the one right here, you pull that one down, and then the one above it, you pull it up, and then you pull the record out. And they're all like that. I've never seen a release quite like this. Loaded with remixes on track. I think there's like 8 or 9 remixes spread across these things. I'll open up the, here's the other record you didn't see. They're all on yellow vinyl. It makes sense. It's yellow, right? Should be on yellow. You got the track listing right here. And yeah, you just get a big smattering of Yello remixes here. On track. An awesome song. Like I mentioned before, most of the songs on this album could have been a single. This is this is just what they chose, along with To the Sea. I wish they would have made Resistor a single. They did release something called Eccentrics Remixes. It never got a full vinyl release though, and I only had the CD of that. I don't show CDs on here. CDs are boring, but I do have a CD of it. They did release a 12-inch with a couple of the remixes, but you had to get the CD to get all the remixes. It would have been nice to have that one on wax, but that's just not what they did. On track. A nice release. Mic check. Looking good. This is La Habanera. This came out in 1996. This was not part of Pocket Universe. This came out the year before in the United States only. The US market decided that they were going to do some updated remixes of an old song. La Habanera was on the 1 Second album. Great album. Excellent song. And this kind of tied in with Hands on Yellow, which is the next release I'm going to talk about. And it's a fun package. I think you guys will enjoy seeing that. It came out the year before this, but I think the mid 90s were an interesting time for Yello. They were starting to evolve and change a lot, and it all had a similar sound. This was the logo for the Hands on Yellow release, and when they released that in 19 that actually came out in 95. In 96, the US market did some additional mixes for La Habanera. And to my knowledge, this is the only place you can get these, unless I'm wrong. This features some exclusive remixes you only get on these US promos. And most of these remixes, I've never heard of the people. I've no clue who they are. Carl Craig is on here on one of these. I mentioned Carl Craig in my LFO video. If you don't know Carl Craig, god damn it. What are you waiting on? Carl Craig, Planet E. Go check out Carl Craig. He has an album called Land Cruising that will change your life. Carl Craig, Land Cruising. Yes, listen to this. Anything with Carl Craig's name on it, listen to it. Plutone is also on here. I heard of him. Prophets of Rage. I don't know. S&M, Bastone, Holoquist, Mark Hill, and other Prophets of Rage. A bunch of names I don't know. Maybe you guys know. I've never heard of them. They're good mixes. Not the greatest mixes I've ever heard of Yello, but it's more Yello versions and reinterpretations. I'm always open to hearing that. Yello music is absolutely made for reinterpretation. That's all it is. It's sound sculptures. They're made for people to disengage and dismantle them. That is a good thing. And Yello understands that. That's all Boris Blank does. He takes sound and he rearranges it, and he lets other people take his sound and rearrange that. And that's the whole spirit of Yello. Speaking of Yello, the spirit of Yello, I give you this. This is a pretty fun release. This came out in 95. Hands on Yellow. That's what this is called. Hands on Yellow. Oh, it just dawned on me. I have a t-shirt of this with these guys. I should have wore that. Oh well. That sense of humor coming through. Check that out. How fun is that? This was a box set that came out in 1995, and Yellow basically handed the reins over to all kinds of other remixers to take their back catalog and remix it. And you get all kinds of talent here, and you get some exclusive remixes and versions here that you don't find anywhere else. That's a cool thing. Like there's a grid mix on here, I think, that's not anywhere else. You get an extended orb remix. You get Jam and Spoon. You get Carl Cox. In fact, you get Carl Craig again. Let me break this open. This was 1,000 copies. Mine is number 862. Very fun release. There's 6 records in here, y'all. And it came with these as well. How fun is this? A couple of slip mats. I never used them. I like keeping all my stuff together. Always have. You get the slip mats here. Hands on. Hands on Yellow. You get a nice little booklet here. And again, that sense of humor with Boris Blank and Dieter Meier. I mean, pretty much any photo of theirs you could make a t-shirt into. Growing up in the 90s, I had posters of these guys and t-shirts, and I love Yellow. I love these guys. These are so good. I really hope you guys check these guys out. I do feel like these guys are unfairly maligned because they had their big hits like Oh Yeah, and people just assume that's what all their stuff sounds like. No. Nope. Not even close. Do they always make dance music? Well, yeah, of course. They're an electronic group, but man, the sounds that these guys come up with is wholly original, man. Incomparable stuff. Yellow. I don't know anybody else ever like them. Let me rattle off some of these remixers. Let's see. This first disc, yeah, you get the Orb remixing You Gotta Say Yes to Another Excess, which is one of my favorite Yellow songs, and the Orb step in and do that one and do a nice job. That is a great remix, like a 11-minute techno mix, but only the way the Orb would do it, you know. West Bam, yeah, those aren't my favorites. I was never a big West Bam fan. West Bam fan. He was more of a trance guy, really. Not really ever into trance. Jam and Spoon, another trance outfit. These are Yellow songs though, so even the trance groups, it's hard to make Yellow sound bad. You know what I mean? I think Moby's on here somewhere too. Jens, Ilsa Gold. I feel like Ilsa Gold is a name for somebody else. I don't remember who it is. I don't remember. Carl Cox, Plutone. I think this last disc has Grid and Moby mixes and Carl Craig, if I'm not mistaken. Oliver Lieb. I'm going to fumble around here and figure this out. Grid. Yeah, there's like an exclusive Grid remix on here. This is loaded with great stuff. Loaded with awesome remixes. Now, how easy this one is to find, I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's probably not very easy to find. It was very limited. I don't know how many you're going to find with these still intact or the booklet, you know. Probably not easy to find, but I know you can get the CD. I think the track listing is slightly different. But if you're into this mid-90s Yellow sound, this is an essential pickup, I think. And if you're a Yellow fan anyway, you should have this. Probably their most fun release. You don't see too many Yellow box sets around. Although they should put all their albums together. How awesome would that be? To compile them all together? That would be amazing. A quick run through here. The Habanera, On Track, a single from Pocket Universe, many different versions of To the Sea on Pocket Universe, all leading back to this Pocket Universe. You should give this a chance. If you've never heard it, you really should. I know a lot of electronic people that just have never heard this. This name invokes a lot of judgment, and you should stop doing that if you're doing that. You should put your judgment aside and finally embrace the absolute and utter genius of these men right here. Sure, they're goofy. They don't take themselves all that seriously, but they take their music seriously, especially Boris. This man's productions are second to none. You want to learn how to produce some music, you listen to a Yello record, seriously. This dude has some insane, immense talents, and if you've never heard this, it's high time that you did. A great album you have never heard is waiting right around the corner for you. Check it out. And if you have heard it, go listen to it again. Experience its awesomeness one more time. Goodbye.